So here I'm just going to keep talking about basic order of operation problems. Pay really careful attention to the signs, especially how addition and subtraction are really the same thing. When we're dealing with adding a negative, that's really the same thing as subtracting, and subtracting a negative is really the same thing as adding. The signs for negative and subtraction are really interchangeable. So I'm going to do 1, 3, and 5 in the video. You're going to do 2, 4, and 6 on your own. I'm going to do the left side, you do the right side. So our first step on number 1, if we had grouping symbols, we would do those, but we don't. If we had exponents, we would do that next. We still don't. We have multiplication and division. So I'm trying to decide between those. I also have subtraction, but I know that's not coming first. I'm going to decide between multiplication and division. I have to work that left to right, so I have to do my division first. So I have negative 10 minus 24. And, oops, sorry, no, I don't really want to write that 24 because I'm actually going to use that in the division. Negative 24 divided by 3 is a negative 8. That's what I'm going to write there, negative 8 times 8. That's my next step. I'm going to multiply negative 8 times 8. That gives me negative 64. And now I can finally do the subtraction. Negative 10 minus 64 is negative 74. I took care of my division first, then I did my multiplication. I didn't have any addition, so I did my subtraction next. Alright, now I do have grouping symbols. I'm going to start with that one. I'm going to do inside the parentheses first. Negative 1 minus 2 times, that changes into a negative 5. I'm just doing 1 minus 6, divided by 5. I did my grouping symbol. I don't have any exponents. I do have multiplication, and I do have division. I got multiplication, and I have division. I have to work that from left to right, so I'm going to do negative 2 times negative 5. This is especially important. It really is both a minus sign and a negative sign. Those are the same thing. I'm using that in a multiplication problem, so I want to bring that with the 2. It's a negative 2 times a negative 5. Negative 2 times negative 5 is a positive 10. So the subtraction is going to change into an addition symbol. It's going to be negative 1 plus 10 divided by 5. I took care of my multiplication now. Now I can do the division. I'm going to do that next. It's negative 1 now plus 2. That's just coming from 10 divided by 5. And negative 1 plus 2 is positive. The last step was addition, and I don't have any subtraction, so I didn't need to worry about that. I think this is definitely the most confusing part of this. That negative sign, or that subtraction, changing into a positive or a plus. That isn't the most straightforward, but if you take that an extra step, if you were to do it like this, negative 1 minus 2 times negative 5, if you were to multiply just 2 times negative 5, you'd get negative 1 minus, actually I'm not going to write the parentheses anymore. Once you do the multiplication, you want to get rid of the parentheses. That gives us minus negative 10. So this, minus a negative 10, really just changes directly into that. Negative 1 plus 10. Those are the exact same thing. I actually glossed over a really important point. Every time you have parentheses, you want to do inside the parentheses, and you want to keep those parentheses there, because we want to show that this still means multiplication. It's still that negative 2 times the negative 5. Once you do the multiplication, then we can get rid of the parentheses. You want to keep the parentheses until you actually do whatever is interacting with the parentheses. Sometimes it's going to be an exponent. Alright, on number 5, we have 10 minus all of that stuff. We want to figure out what all of that is. And again, the fraction bar is acting as a grouping symbol here. We have to do everything on top, everything on the bottom, and then we'll just divide those two numbers. So I want to follow order of operations on the top. On the bottom, I just have the subtraction. So on the top, I really need to pay attention to order of operations. I have a grouping symbol, and inside of that grouping symbol, I have an exponent. So I'm really taking care of my grouping symbol first, although not even completely. The fraction bar is a grouping symbol, so I'm not even really finished with that. I have to do order of operations inside of there. So I'm going to do my exponent first. 10 minus 6 minus 2 times 2 squared is just 4. All of that is over 2 minus 4. Still need to follow order of operations on top. I don't have any exponents left. I have to do my multiplication next. I'm going to take care of that first. So it's 10 minus 6 minus 8. It's a negative 2 times 4. That's a negative 8. So I wrote it as minus 8. And 2 minus 4 on the bottom. I'm actually going to do both of those at the same time because they're not really going to interact until I divide. So I'm going to do 6 minus 8. That's negative 2. And 2 minus 4 is also negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. So that gives me 10 minus 1, or just 9.